Hey guys, I'm Rachel Castile and welcome to Typology Corner. Today I'm going to continue the cognitive function series and we'll be speaking about introverted sensing. It's also notated as SI. And this is considered an observer function. So it's about taking in information and not as much making a decision on the information, but it is a form of information that we all do have access to, but certain types prioritize this above other types of ways of taking in information or making observations. So introverted sensing is an internal function. It is something, it's like a bank of data, of facts, of known information that is held on, that is relied upon as opposed to the other options. So types that have introverted sensing, they also have extroverted intuition, which is a function that is focused on recognizing patterns in the real world around them, patterns and concepts, new ideas and stuff. But this is more focused on the known information, known facts, known experiences, things that were retained from the past that carry meaning to the individual who has introverted sensing as a high priority function. Types that lead with this are very much guided by the things that they already know, the things that already work for them. A thing about introverted sensing, it is highly related to being like an associative memory. And I'll explain that a bit. So in seeing objects around you, you could look at like some headphones and it can make you think of something else. It can make you think of a memory of who you got it from or something that's sentimental that's connected to it. It's like an associative memory of things as you're looking about and interacting. Objects can be a trigger of the internal introverted sensing, like the perception of like known memories, known experiences, of the data that has stuck with you throughout the years. So you can almost think of it as like flashbacks, that things, they can't help but associate, or the things that got associated to certain objects, that when they encounter those objects or they encounter those people, that the memories pop back up, whether good or bad, that are related to the object. So it is a subjective thing that is being like overlaid on experiences that are carrying more weight for them than the other things. I personally am an extroverted sensor, so my experience of my environment is a little bit different. We're both sensor types, an extroverted sensor versus introverted sensor. As an extroverted sensor, as I'm looking at objects, they are just objects. I don't have much of a memory association tied to them. I'm not as inclined to like hear a song and think about who I heard the song with, or common examples is like, hey, this is a song when I broke up with so-and-so, so I can't listen to that song because I instantly think of them. That's like a SI, introverted sensing association that's, gotten attached to it. I'm less inclined to experience those sorts of things. Sometimes I can be like listening to an audio and remember like where I was. Like say I listened to something on a road trip. If I listen to that, I'll think of where I was when I heard it. I have that sometimes, but outside of that, it's not very strong to associate certain or to have those like flashbacks when encountering people or objects. I may have like an emotional feeling or something that is coming up from I think we all do this in some kind of way. So this is not to say that, only introverted sensor dominant people are having these sorts of things. So introverted intuition is also can be somewhat associative in a different kind of way, noticing patterns and stuff like, hey, I've seen this pattern before. But this is literally more so memory. And something I've listened to different people who do lead with this function. I have people in my life that lead with this function. But I've heard that it's almost something that they can't turn off. Like it's so autopilot that they think that everyone is doing this at that level, and it's just not the case. But it's very much the world or the lens that the introverted sensor is living through. Another characteristic of introverted sensing, they are like highly inclined to create order or to enjoy doing so, or to organize things, creating structure. They are like chaos avoidant in a sense, as opposed to an extroverted sensor like me winds up like thriving in chaos, liking chaos, almost like creating chaos. But introverted sensing is an organizing function. So you can think of control, having control over the chaos to limit chaos, keeping things in order. That is their gift, is to put things in order. So that's a very pivotal aspect of someone who has this function in a dominant position. They're not liking, I guess, unforeseen, unexpected things can be a bit disruptive to them. They can have a negative reaction to something kind of like jarring their stability in the order that they've created. Something else. I'm trying to think. Let's see. I kind of lost a certain point I was going to make earlier, but they're very in tune with their body. That's what it was. Introverted sensing it's an internal like equilibrium almost of when you think of when you're associating or you've retained certain associations from past memories, past experiences. Think of it as like memory. It's not all inclusive that's what it is, but I think it's a concept that I can go with to explain this, that you have an experience, it was negative with someone, that will really stick with them. It'll be associated. It can be easy for an introverted sensor to want peace in their body, peace in their environment, and the things that are in their environment, they feel it on a body level. They feel what it's doing to them. Like they're very in tune with their body. Introverted sensing has a lot to do with being like body awareness almost. So they feel, we all do in a sense, but they're aware of it, I guess. Those that have it high, because again, all people have all of these functions, but in what order, So they feel these sensations as they get around things that were positive associations. So there's a positive feeling for the things that have been positively associated, like nostalgia about something good, a childhood movie that you loved, and going back to it and watching it again is like going back to that positive association, that positive memory. Getting to relive it is something that introverted sensors really thoroughly enjoy, to go back to the things that were that they had a positive association with it. So having objects around them that are connected to positive memories, like, hey, my grandma gave me this and she was amazing and she passed. So this object, when I look at it, I'm kicked right back to the positive bond that I had with my grandma, before she died. Like that's a tangible example of that. When I look at this vehicle, I had this, my dad had this car or this truck whenever I was little. It was the first truck I rode in, or this is whenever my dad let me drive for the first time, or this is the four-wheeler, the very first four-wheeler, or this is my first drum set. And this is when I learned these things, and I learned this with my brother. You see all these things, and we're talking about an object in the room, but to an introverted sensor, all those different associations are attached to it. So as you can see, this can be for the positive, it can be for the negative, and this is happening constantly. So as a result of that, just to think if that many associations could be connected to the things that you have in your environment, the things in your environment could cause you to have positive reactions in your body or negative. And this is kind of where the control can come into place, that it can be, I don't want to call it always negative. So types that are IJs are prone to control. And in order to outlive that internal process, you need to somewhat control the outside world to be satisfactory or congruent with that introverted sensing preferences almost within it, of like, these things were good, these things were bad, so the bad things, I'm going to control those out of my life, and I'm going to keep the good things around me. So if you think about this can cause them to be tethered to their environment in that sense of like, everything in this room will be the positive things that I have good associations with, and I'm going to distance myself from the things that I have negative associations with that bring up in my body all the things that were attached to those things. So think of this as a natural disposition for them in the midst of encountering things and ordering their life and organizing things. It can be very easy for them to that this would feel the natural progression for them based on the types of perceptions that they have, to get away from the negative things and move toward the positive things, considering they've retained things at that level. Just again, for comparison, I'm not tracking that as much, introverted sensing, I have a place for it, but yeah, just to speak into it's not everyone, right? But so this makes sense. So yeah, they're prone to also going into their known information, their known facts, their known routines, the things that works for them. Just think about it, as they go through life, their experiences are guiding the experiences that they choose going forward. They learn from their experiences, they retain their experiences. So they have, they're highly inclined to live according to those life lessons. They're like, I lived this, and then I lived this, and I learned this from it. So I'm going to be guided by this lesson because I've seen this, I experienced this. So over time, their past experiences are highly informing the decisions they make in the present, or the things that they engage in the future are highly informed by their past. And some people say that they're traditional, that, they don't like change, and, that they're picky, and these can be states that they're in, but this is where it comes from. It can be, they can be particular in that sense, but they're being informed by the things they've been through. So a growth point for introverted sensors, the more they can branch out and have new experiences, they will learn from those, and it will be incorporated in the introverted sensing data points that they have. And then they can make even wiser decisions. So, an introverted sensor could be someone, you think of this being the way their mind is working. If they only experienced a few things and they only said to themselves, I have to stay within what I know, they could live in a very small place. But an introverted sensor that is going to branch out into new possibilities, who's going to engage their extroverted intuition, again, if you lead with introverted sensing, your inferior function is extroverted intuition, which is the new possibilities, the brainstorming, the stepping out and trying new things. They have an inclination to not do that as much, but it is a growth point that the more they can step out and let some new things in, it will reinform that introverted sensing and kind of update the file. Because y'all learned from your life experience. So in order for your life to change, you got to get some new experiences to learn something new, to move beyond the reality that you're in. So that's just something to add in, that extroverted intuition is a positive growth point for introverted sensors. But so yeah, introverted sensors are highly inclined to enjoy routine, to enjoy the things that they enjoy, because they know what makes them happy. They know what makes them feel good in a sense. So they can like to go back to those experiences, and they don't need a lot of variety to be happy, because they are happy with the things that make them happy in a sense. So if you look at a person's life like that, they can be very routine in what they do. They can have a very structured life, but they've structured their life with the things that they know works for them. So they can be resistant to change. And really it's because what they're doing isn't broken. What they're doing is, doesn't need to be updated, because they're still happy with it, So that's a bit of the place of living as a introverted sensor. So what else can I say about introverted sensors? Yeah, they can think that their answers are in what they already know. And this is an introverted type dominantly. This function can also be in other types, in a secondary position, in a tertiary position, or an inferior position. So out of the 16 core types within MBTI that then expands an objective personality, but at a core level, there are two primary types, ISTJ and ISFJ, that lead with this function. And then in a secondary position, you've got ESFJ and then ESTJ. And then a third position, you've got the INTP and INFP. And then in an inferior position, you have the ENFP and the ENTP, who has it in an inferior, where this is actually could be their growth point, to be more in tune with their body. But people who have this high up, they are in tune with their health. They're in tune with like what their body needs. Yeah, they... let's see, what else can I highlight? I guess from some personal examples, but yeah, people who have this function thoroughly enjoy creating order in their lives, organizing their home, organizing the way they do things, the systems of how they accomplish things, how they do the dishes. There's a particular way that they want to do it, and it flows out of experience. This works. I learned this. This works for me. This is how I do hair. This is how I change the oil. This is how I wash my car. This is how I do laundry. This is how I work out. It's like the tried and true information. And yeah, I think that's the essence of introverted sensing. Again, it's an observation function. So this is not actually a judgment. It is just the types of information that is readily available to them. They're highly inclined to be nostalgic around things, because of their level of retention. Like in comparison to an extroverted sensor, the retention or value of old experiences is not as high for me. It's more the seeking the new, something I haven't seen, something I haven't experienced already, something brand new, some variety. And introverted sensing is more the tried and true, what works for me, an appreciation for those things, and living a life that incorporates those things, filtering out the negative experiences. Oh yeah, another point I did want to talk about, in just thinking about that, how you can have an association to something that's actually starting to box you in, that you're like avoiding things that you need to actually have new experiences with so you can break the negative associations. That's something that would be very, very good for an introverted sensor, because their world gets smaller and smaller. That it's like, those people are bad, they did this to me, they did this to me, and it just gets smaller and smaller. It's like, I've got to be more controlled, even more controlled, because that was bad, and you just as easily could start associating all the negative things to so many different things that your world gets smaller and smaller. So a growth point is to be able to, as I was saying, in the extroverted intuition, to get more of a balance of like, no, I'm going to branch out. I know the possibility of what happened in the past could happen again, but I'm going to entertain the possibility that something new could happen, that something new could emerge, that could change my association. So as an introverted sensor, it's definitely something you want to kind of search your heart about, to not run from the things that have, like on a body level, something you're like, oh, I want to avoid that. Like, I don't want to engage with that. I don't want to feel that again. To not just fully let your past associations stay the way they are so that you can grow. I heard an example of like someone getting in a wreck or something around a certain curve, and to be able to like go back to that curve again and to realize that you cannot wreck there, and you could drive normal there and not have to go, I can't go there anymore because that negative experience is associated to that place. It brings me back to that. So yeah, just knowing that your mind is highly inclined to be guided by this, to also let yourself branch out, redefine these experiences so that your world can start to open up more and more and more, and that your control won't be just fully out of like self-protection, but it can be just purely to create order and to, create good structures and good systems of doing things in your life, that it doesn't have that element of avoidance of something that you feel like you can't deal with, or something that's too much for you, or it makes you feel a certain way, that you can start to detach those things and see them in a new light, so you can get new experiences that reinform those associations. So yeah, this is a beautiful function. Again, we all have this in us to some level, but introverted sensors who have it high, they know I'm speaking their language, because this is the place. This is the most dominant thing in their life. So, yeah, so I hope that this spoke to you, that you could identify with it. And yeah, if you got value out of it, give me a thumbs up. And for future content, go on ahead and click the subscribe button below, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for stopping by the channel. All right, take care.